Greetings, Andy here.
Hey, Andy. There I am. How you doing?
Good, Dennis. How about you?
Good. I'm trying to do a few little things, so I'll be right with. Do you need anything, Andy, from me at this point?
I'm good to go, and I think I'm comfortable with going ahead and presenting slides from my end. So I'll be
Yeah.
happy to do that if that works.
Yeah. I made you co-host, so you're now the grand maestro.
Oh, so I could admit people.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff. Or you can kick them out and say, "Hey, how much money you got?"
Uh-oh. Or, gee, that was too tough of a question.
Oh, okay. Let's
Or
see.
more likely, you haven't asked a question.
Exactly.
Love to have discussion on this one.
Let me. I'm trying to make Grant. Grant is our new Brady, our new intern. So he is now co-host as well. So hey, Grant, how are you doing? Hopefully you're there and
Hey
not a
Dennis, I'm
bot.
doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I never know, how this stuff works. Um, okay, so I'll be right back. Hang on, everybody.
You got it.
Hey,
How are
Andy,
y'all
thank you so
doing
much for
today?
joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My goodness. I'm excited to talk about consumer goods and branding. It's a topic I just love.
That's awesome. I'm excited to learn some stuff.
It's good. If you're the new Brady, then you've got the brain the size of a planet. So we might as well introduce ourselves with some of the folks on. Karen, you're on. Do you want to introduce yourself? Well, I'll try to unmute you from my grand position here as co-host. There you go. Perfect.
I always do that. I'm Karen Haythcott from Goldsboro, and the company is Indian Springs Pecans, or pecans, as we say in the down east. But that's in enjoying this class. It's great.
Fantastic.
It accelerates you and stimulates you to do new things.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy, here's the even amazing thing. Guess who is actually from Goldsboro?
Who? You?
Andy Griffith.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
No, I'm not. Come on.
Yeah.
I didn't think you were, Dennis. Come on.
Yeah, I'm from upstate New York, but
Yeah.
Andy Griffith is from Goldsboro, right?
He
Karen?
was he came as a teacher
Oh,
to
okay.
Goldsboro High School,
Oh, okay.
a long time ago, and he did drama and and he did some great things that he continued on probably through my generation
Wow.
that were fantastic on stage kind of things. So he was headed for the TV and movie world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough,
That's
or
right.
unfortunate, depending how you look at it, but I spent the afternoon with Don Knotts one time. Long story, but if I can find the picture, I'll post it. It's hysterical. I don't think he was 5'3" at the most.
Oh my
He was
goodness.
the tiniest little guy. It was, and there's a picture of me and him waving at the camera or whatever, and he looks like, comes up to my waist. So I'll try to dig up that picture and post it just for a laugh. But he was a really warm, smart, funny guy. Nothing like the character he played. So that's my only claim to fame with the Andy Griffith Show.
You're correct.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And Grant, keep your eyes peeled as more folks show up. I know they will. And everybody, I'd like you to meet my dear friend Andy Gilicinski, or I should say Dr. Andy. And he's been a strong supporter of this program and of ECU. He actually came to ECU and before COVID and gave speeches and just impressed the hell out of everybody. So Andy is an honorary pirate, even more so than myself, I think. But anyway, we're really happy that Andy is here. He has a background, and I'll let him go into more detail, but he has a background with consumer product goods. He also is a PhD, so he not only can sell, but he knows what the hell he's selling, which is unusual. I'm gonna turn it over, and I promise not to interrupt. So Andy Gilicinski.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Dennis, for the warm welcome. While I tee up the slides, I think I've got a share screen thing here. What I wanted to do today is give you a synthesis of my reflections on working with consumer brands. Most of my career has been with the consumer products, consumer packaged goods industry, starting with Gillette, and then going to Clorox, Georgia Pacific, and then finally SC Johnson, and working in categories ranging from personal care, shaving preparations, antiperspirants and deodorants, blades and razors, batteries, home cleaners, air fresheners, bath tissue, carpet cleaners, just about. I can guarantee you that there's something that I've touched that is in your home today.
I heard there was a rumor that you were responsible for the toilet paper shortage in COVID. Is that correct?
That I will absolutely refuse that. But it's so interesting because the paper machines that make professional B2B sale bath tissue for gas stations, restaurants, cafeterias, schools, and everything else make a very different grade than for consumer. And I'll tell you, the paper industry was going crazy trying to figure out how they could adapt some of the unused capacity for the professional markets where people weren't going to cafeterias and restaurants and schools. And there was all kinds of capacity sitting there waiting to be used that they were struggling to figure out how they could adapt to the consumer market, which, as we all know, was very short. I've popped a set of slides on the screen. Are they visible to y'all?
Yes.
Awesome. So what I'd love to do is go ahead and present off of this, but I'm going to periodically stop and very much encourage questions, dialogue. This is a discussion. I'm not going to kill you with PowerPoint slides. I just want to use this to help illustrate some of the points, but really have this be a conversation between us. So you got a little bit about my background. The only thing I haven't said is that I got involved in mergers and acquisitions, which is a fascinating process. I helped buy Burt's Bees, a $2 billion or $1 billion deal back in 2007. At SC Johnson, I wrapped up my time there helping to run M&A for the entire company and figuring out a way to help bring rapidly growing, very millennial-friendly brands into a $10 billion strategic consumer products company. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like working with a strategic firm to buy companies to really give you a sense of what is valuable about a small entrepreneurial firm like the ones you guys are running and starting, in terms of getting what I think many people hope they will get at some point, which is a chance to be bought out and be able to enjoy the fruits of building a great new brand. So what I'd love to speak about today is the power and the value of branding. What does that do to that wonderful product, Karen, in your example, your Indian Springs pecans, or other products that the rest of you are either making or selling, or services that you're offering? What is important about a brand? Why does that matter? And why does creating a strong brand, a powerful brand, help you be more successful with your company? I'd like to also cover a little bit about metrics around a powerful consumer brand, and wrap up with the role of new brands in the consumer packaged goods industry. Today, even though we've got so many well-known brands that have been around forever, there is still huge opportunity for a great new brand and a great new value proposition for consumers. And that's where you all come in, because you will hopefully be building great companies. And I would love to intersperse throughout our conversation discussion around your brands. Or examples that you think are especially helpful to your situation. I'd like to start with just how valuable brands can be. When we think about the value of consumer brands, one way to do it is a metric that Forbes has had annually, where they talk about the power of branding and the value of branding. This is a chart of the top 10 most valuable consumer brands or most valuable brands from 2020. I think they may have just issued their 2021 chart. I need to pull that out if I can find that it's been recently issued. I'll send it around, Dennis, and you can share it with the group.
Sure.
But the interesting thing is when you look at the chart columns between brand value in the middle of the page and the brand revenue at the right side of the page, it illustrates something extremely important. And before you look too hard at the numbers, who knows out of these top 10 brands on this chart, which is the most valuable brand itself out of these 10 companies? Just shout it out if you
I would say Apple.
Great bet. Great thought. Any other thoughts?
I'd go for Amazon.
Another excellent suggestion. Any others? Going.
McDonald's.
Another great one. It is none of the above. It is Coca-Cola.
Oh my God.
And by the power, the value of the brand itself, not brand value, but the actual, how valuable is the brand? The metric to look at is the difference between the revenue and the value of the brand. And that shows you how much only the brand itself, not the patents, the intellectual property, the factories, the employees, all the buildings, all the assets that a company has. That's the total value of the brand in that middle chart. The brand revenue is their sales. What are their sales in this case for 2020? And you look at Apple, which was the first suggested answer. Their revenue is $260 billion, but their value as a brand is roughly similar to that. So which is good. You've got a very, very important brand, very valuable brand, but that's a very asset heavy industry. So they also need an awful lot of things they have to spend money on and that are sitting on their books as assets that are part of the brand value thing versus their sales. When you look at Coca-Cola, their sales are 25 billion. Their brand is worth more than double that. And that is the biggest delta in terms of the multiple that the brand value brings versus the revenue of the company. When you look at something like McDonald's, it's actually a much smaller brand value than their actual revenues. Their revenues are very strong, of course, very large company, but the power of branding something with McDonald's is not nearly as valuable. It doesn't provide nearly the lift in the overall value of the company versus the revenue that the company has than Coca-Cola. That it's a case study, and you go to marketing courses anywhere, and they'll talk about the incredible journey that Coca-Cola has taken over the years. Coke has done a number of things very well. They started very early in their brand's life with a very consistent look and feel. Back in 1900, they already had a very recognizable look of that cursive logo for the Coca-Cola brand. They've modified it throughout the years, but it's stayed very consistent. If you look at the shape of their bottle, the iconic Coca-Cola bottle shape, it actually was pretty much established back at the turn of the last century. And the consistency with which they have messaged, with which they have represented their brand, has allowed generation after generation to recognize it, to know what it stands for, and to allow a very low cost sugar water formula to be able to command a tremendous premium in the market as the world's leading soft drink. And allow them to expand into a variety of areas and just have an incredible franchise over the years. So the power of the brand allows you to take the same physical offering and command pricing, which allows, of course, for profitability. It allows you to command distribution. If you've got a very recognized, very desired brand, and you go try to get distribution. Everyone knows it's tough to get on the shelf at Walmart and Target and various distributors and retailers. It's tough to get that top spot in the rankings at Amazon for e-commerce. But if you've got a very powerful brand, you've got the ability to command not just pricing, but also advantage distribution and the ability to get your product in front of consumers. And frankly, within consumer packaged goods, that is the number one indicator of your potential for successful sales. It's being on the shelf. And it's getting in front of the eyeballs of consumers, whether they're walking down a hall with their shopping cart or whether they're zooming through their e-commerce searches. And by the way, getting to the top of those lists of e-commerce searches, as you all can imagine, is absolutely critical. I mean, how many of us go to the 8th page of an Amazon search to find the product that we're looking for? Very few people ever get past the first. So how about today's startup brands? Coca-Cola is a wonderful example, the world's most valuable brand, but it's so ancient. Is it possible to create great brands today? Well, I'd love to share with you a couple of examples that I think are just really inspiring, starting with Annie's. You think about all the high-tech companies and Apple and fancy gizmos and Samsung and everything else. How about good old-fashioned mac and cheese? This is a very pedestrian product. Kraft mac and cheese. If you're been around for a couple of years, you grew up with it. You're familiar with the iconic sort of neon yellow look of the product, the look of the box on the shelf, and ate it as kids growing up. Probably lived off it in college if you were like me. Well, Annie's came up with a clever idea in 1989 to reinvent this boring food staple and offer a different proposition. They wanted to emphasize farm fresh ingredients, good for you. And they very rapidly went into organic and made sure that their product was fully organic. And there was a real Annie, and she drove around in a vehicle like this, and they went and brought their product store to store to try to get distribution in New England. Well, they caught on and became a very popular alternative to Kraft mac and cheese. And they ended up having explosive growth through the late 1990s and the 2000s. They actually went public in 2012, and then in 2014 were acquired by General Mills. Today, Annie's mac and cheese actually has more shelf space in your typical grocery store than Kraft mac and cheese. Just an amazing story for a company that's only a couple decades old, working in a category that's been around for a long time and was dominated by a major player. And they were able to come up with a different proposition. And the branding of Annie's was around that very specific promise to the consumer. Another great example of a startup brand is Harry's Razors. Having started my consumer products career at Gillette, I find this one especially fascinating. Harry's was founded in 2013, and their idea was to provide a different way of distributing blades and razors, and providing it by mail, providing a subscription service that just changed how consumers interact with their blades and razors. They ended up very early in their time buying a blade factory, so they didn't go third party. They actually made the blade and razor cartridges themselves. In 2017, they got distribution in Target to complement their direct-to-consumer model. And in 2019, Energizer offered them $1.4 billion for a company that had only been started 6 years before. And for a Gillette veteran, this was stunning, because the whole category not that long ago was owned so thoroughly by Gillette that 80% dollar share was in one brand by the Gillette company. The Energizer offer ended up being blocked by the FTC because they feared too much concentration in the blade and razor field, which was stunning because Gillette used to own 80% of it. You couldn't imagine any competitor causing any concern like this. But because Energizer owned the Schick brand, in between Schick and Harry's, there was concern that there was too much market concentration. But regardless, the value that was created in those 6 years is just an inspiration to smaller brands. A more recent example is Harry's or Truman's Cleaners, founded in 2019. Truman's Cleaners is a cruel example because it is a reminder to me that I'm not so smart. It used technology that was available 20 years ago. I looked at it when I was at Clorox. It's a system called Just Add Water system, JAWS. It's a cartridge that allows water to come up through a spray bottle. And as the water passes through the cartridge, the chemicals for whatever the cleaner type are introduced in and then squirted out the spray nozzle. And that allows you to have different cartridges for window and glass cleaner, all-purpose kitchen cleaner, bathroom cleaner, whatever you want. And the idea behind that is you can save plastic. You don't have to rebuy the spray bottle every time. You just buy those little cartridges and you can make whatever cleaners you want. I passed on that when I was at Clorox back in 2006, because at that time, it broke my heart being a chemist, but consumers didn't want to be chemists and be mixing things and adding water to bottles and things like that. They just wanted the convenience of buying something that they could purchase, use, and toss out. Well, the world had changed by 2019, and Truman Cleaner recognized it as a startup. They started up in February 2019. By May, they got distribution into Target, which was looking for sustainable brands that could do something about the ocean waste plastic problem that was really gaining a lot of recognition among consumers. And Target had specific corporate goals as a retailer to help advance sustainability. It was one of their corporate values, and Truman's was able to benefit from that. And then just a couple of months after they got distribution at Henkel, $5 million investment in Target, $5 million investment by Henkel in September. So again, sometimes it doesn't even require a new idea, because Truman's was taking something that was literally 20 years old and just reintroducing it in a new way against a new societal need. And they branded it with a very clever brand. They started as a DTC, direct-to-consumer brand, very clever sayings, from Harry Truman and stuff like that on the box. And so they created this whole vibe around the buck stops here, we'll clean and be just as trustable as a Harry Truman was back in his day. So again, these are examples of just recent successes that have happened within the consumer goods area. Some very high tech, some not so high tech at all. And I'll pause there for any comments or reactions on these.
Anybody got anything? Andy, did you get in trouble for turning the deal down?
No, fortunately at Clorox, there had been even worse mistakes. They turned down Swiffer back in, it was launched right around the early 2000s, and they turned it down in the late 90s. A number of other companies did as well, but Clorox is one of the more famous ones. They also turned down Magic Eraser in the US. But in Australia, there was a bit of an independent streak to the marketing group there, and they took it. And they launched it under the Chuck's brand, CHUX. So today, if you're traveling to Australia, you can look in the store, you can find Magic Eraser-like product under the Clorox brand Chuck's. You will not find Magic Eraser under their Procter & Gamble branding, because in Australia it's owned by the Clorox company. So yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of angst about turning things down. This one, it's hard to say whether it's ultimately going to be a runaway success or whether it's just going to be a temporary pop with the plastic waste attention that consumers have. But this is one where I do wish I had taken it, I have to admit.
Yeah.
pushed harder for it. Another one that, just harkening back to your comment, Dennis, about the bath tissue area, you think that's about as boring of a category as it gets as well. Well, here is an interesting one. It's called Dude Wipes. They are flushable wipes. So these are disposable and biodegradable within the septic system. And they were initially introduced in a Shark Tank deal in October of 2015. Within a year, they got distribution in Target. Today, 12,000 stores. Number 2 toileting product at Walmart. You can see the chart at the lower right on how they've recently exceeded Charmin, the largest bath tissue brand and franchise in the country, and have exceeded them in terms of sales for flushable wipes. And
Wow.
shown at the upper right is just a quick LinkedIn post that their CEO posted a couple of months ago, just kind of trash talking. Hey, the brand started out in an apartment in Chicago, just beat Procter and Gamble at their own game. Now we sell more bath tissue than our $300 billion competitor. Everyone said we didn't have the capital, resources, experience to ever make this happen, blah, blah, blah. I'll bet on passion, hunger, and authenticity every day of the week. I thought that would be inspiring for us today.
Yeah, that's really good. It reminds me of the Orville Wright story by Simon Sinek in his video, how the Wright brothers overcame a similar kind of obstacle to fly. Andy, one thing that strikes me about what you're saying, and you're probably aware of it, but you might not be, but almost every success story starts with, and then they got distribution in Target. Talk about that a little bit, because that's a very consistent motif.
Well, I'll tell you, whether it's Walmart or Target or starting more modestly, at grocery stores or even small regional bodegas in Los Angeles, at some point you have to get your product on the shelf. E-commerce, of course, is the hot thing, but depending on the category, an awful lot of categories still have very small penetration in e-commerce. Air care, for example, the air freshener category, I think has reached about 8% sales distribution on everything on e-commerce, Amazon included, of course, that being the dominant one. But for that category, people still like to look at it, smell it at the shelf. That's often true with shampoos and soaps and things like that. If you stand in the store aisle and watch people buy shampoo, so many times they look around furtively and then they'll pop the top and smell it and see if they like the fragrance. So now other things are very much dominated by e-commerce, but whether you're going e-commerce direct to consumer or whether you're going through a brick and mortar retailer, you've got to get your product in front of the consumer. Again, we spoke before, that is the number one determiner of sales. What is your distribution? And by the way, once you get distribution, you only have it for a little bit to prove yourself and make sure that you can make that store shelf productive. Because Walmart doesn't gain anything, even though they might love each of us on this call. It doesn't matter. They don't care. That store shelf, every inch of it has to produce. And it has to have a velocity in either dollars or volume that allows that shelf to be creating profit for the retailer. And if you're within an existing category like the flushable wipes category, they've got other brands. They clearly had Cottonelle and Charmin off version products on the shelf. They could either do one of two things. When Dude Wipes came along, they could grow that category. The store is a finite size. If something else isn't selling as well, maybe fewer new babies around, so maybe fewer baby wipes as the birth rate declines a little bit here in the U.S. So they might shrink that part of the category a little bit, and they might expand this category if they think Dude Wipes is going to help grow the category. Alternately, if they don't think the category is going to grow, then they're going to optimize that shelf set to the brands. They're going to turn as much product as possible. And if they think placing a bet on Dude Wipes is going to give them more sales than an incremental extra SKU or a current SKU of Charmin or Cottonelle or somebody else, then they might pull something from Charmin or Cottonelle and give Dude Wipes a try. And if they sell more than the previous SKU had been selling, they'll keep them on. Maybe they'll grow them and take another one from Cottonelle or Charmin. And that's how the game is played. It's a very complicated game. And it's all about how can I grow your category, either in terms of productivity within the shelf set that's there, or grow it so much that you might consider expanding it with incremental shelf space versus one of the adjacent categories that's maybe slowing down a little bit. And
what strikes me,
there's a lot of money involved in that distribution game. Go ahead.
One of the things that strikes me about at least this particular category, the brands that you mentioned, Cottonelle, other brands, they're very soft, almost childlike, or foo-foo, I guess would be the right word, certainly compared to Dude Wipes, which clearly speaks to a different audience, than the frou-frou stuff. At least that's how it strikes me. Their communication is to a different target than traditionally. I think CPG companies are marketing to women, marketing to kind of the traditional family setup. And here there are all these dudes out there going, "Hey, I'm not buying Cottonelle."
That's right.
It's got the little bear, the little blue bear. I'm not buying that for my man shed or whatever.
That's exactly right. And the fascinating thing is, are men buying these things, or are women buying them for their men?
Have you learned about that?
I don't have a point of view on that. A majority of shoppers, well known, are women, and it could be that they've heard the man complain about the rough bath tissue and want to get something flushable, but want to get something that might appeal to their manhood or manliness or whatever.
Yeah.
Or there are a surprising number of men that will buy, and they may not be the main shopper for the family, but if they have a specific need that they have, they'll get in the store too. And frankly, the neat thing about it is, people have played with the idea of, are men the forgotten shoppers? Method has recently come out with male cleaning products, that kind of message for men that, hey, you're the manly guy that's cleaning the bathroom toilet or whatever. And those may or may not ultimately be successful, but it's a constant push on who's the underrepresented or the underserved consumer within a category. And in some cases, you may hit on something with the man wipes that are shown here. In other cases, it may seem like a good idea, but not quite stick because men are perfectly happy to work with whatever the mainstream brands are. So it's a constant game to figure out, hey, just like we talked about with the plastic bottle thing, with the Truman cleaners. It wasn't an issue 20 years ago. It was a big deal issue in 2019. Everyone was talking about ocean plastic. So things change over time, and being nimble enough to be able to go after it is really important. In fact, the quote down here, right in the middle of the slide, in the post by Sean Riley, the CEO at Dude Wipes, the giants are asleep at the wheel. And I personally thought that was a cool comment, because all of us on this call may be more passionate, more observant, more sensing an emerging trend than huge companies with legacy brands that either may not recognize the trend or may not be nimble enough to act on it, or their brand may not extend. If you had Dude Wipes by Charmin, would that work? Probably not. And we'll talk about how the extendability of brands in a couple of moments. But sometimes a large company can see the trend, but they're powerless because they can't do it with their existing brand. And that gives you all a fantastic opportunity, because if you can capitalize on it in a clever way, then it will not remain underserved for long, because you'll find a way to serve it, and your company will reap the rewards of being in a position to satisfy that need.
Fantastic.
So And just kind of wrapping up the first section, you mentioned Simon Sinek. I really love this video. I don't know if this cohort has seen the video yet.
They have. We just saw it. Yeah, number one on my hit parade every class.
Awesome. So I'll just remind you that, Simon talks about the difference between, the what, which is on the outside circle of, what is really important to a brand, the how, which gets in closer, but at the core of it is the why. Why does your brand exist? Why does your product, why does your company exist? What are you doing for people that is special? And I just love his example around, Dell Computer. They sell great computers. They are talking constantly about the what, and maybe a little bit about the how, because they've got a unique way of letting you customize the computer for yourself. But their basic message is, hey, we sell great computers. They run Windows. They run programs. They print stuff. Woohoo! Whereas a company like Apple takes the completely different approach. They're in the middle of the why. They barely tell you the what. They don't even mention it because they figure, that's boring. That's self-evident. We're talking about, think differently, change the world, make you feel smart because everything works together seamlessly, naturally. The whole Apple thing, and the more you can build your own offerings and propositions from just the what does it functionally do, to the how does it do it, how is what you're doing to make it or offer it or sell it special, ultimately getting to the most powerful point, to the why are you doing it, why do you exist, why are you passionate about it, why do you care, why are your pecans something that people should be jumping on the roofs and screaming about, and
What do you got those pecans, Karen? If they're on the roof screaming, I don't know. I'm not sure I want to try those.
But you get the point. The more it becomes something that it really allows you to communicate with your consumer, and ultimately, the important point is to let me jump to the next slide here. For some reason, my pointer isn't working. There we go. So when we talk about metrics around a powerful brand, the things that I like to think about that reflect the power of an important brand are the mission and beliefs of it, the convictions, the clarity of purpose. They're qualitative metrics, of course. They're not numerical, but there's something that you can look at, you can assess, and you can measure people's reactions to it. A couple of the classic ways of assessing brands and their mission and beliefs, conviction, purpose, is through unaided awareness. Tell me about a brand of shampoo that you think is exciting, and see whether yours gets mentioned within that group, or a sunscreen that you think is new and exciting, and or that you really believe in or are excited about. And social media gives us a powerful way of both engaging with consumers and also assessing people's engagement with a brand. Just simple things like measuring followers and likes, impressions, earned media. How much do you get your brand spoken about in the world without paying directly for those mentions, just by people being excited enough about something they saw about it that they'll reshare it and talk about your brand to others in the world? And in terms of mission beliefs, I wanted to share here some examples that I've found really inspirational. They help to lift up what is offered and talk to the why they exist. And, we started with Coca-Cola. Their thing is to refresh the world and inspire moments of optimism and happiness. They're not all about just selling you some sugar water. They're about optimism and happiness. Now, doesn't that create something that at least gives you a chance to be a little bit more inspired by the brand than if they just talked about the what? For one that we've all seen is Nike. The Just Do It. Well, they have a great way of talking about themselves. We believe, we're talking about a company's belief, that if you have a body, you're an athlete. Now, how uplifting is that? I don't know about you all. Some of you may be real athletes by, the more conventional definitions. I've never been blessed with a body that makes me feel like I'm an athlete, but hey, Nike believes that I'm an athlete. That's cool. And to infuse that kind of belief into their communications, their advertising, how they build their products, how they sell to us, helps to reinforce that. Here in where I'm on the video from near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Harley Davidson was created. They've still got their factory here, their headquarters here, and they've always had the idea of fulfilling dreams of personal all-American freedom. Again, whether you love Harley or hate Harley, you know what they stand for, and they try to create a real palpable sense for the how. I'll pause here for any reactions, and any of these are especially inspire you, or do you have examples that you've really appreciated of either products that you're making or services you're offering, or things that you are inspired by in the marketplace?
I think from my perspective, and please speak up, folks, what people in our area have the opportunity or the advantage is really kind of a beautiful rural area with quality fruits and vegetables that are grown here, and kind of an authentic American place. It has been here for a lot of years. So I think place and geography and kind of setting is a big tone for Eastern North Carolina, I think, and the beach and everything. Anyone else?
And that's a beautiful thing, the authenticity, it's real. It's the kind of place, especially in today's pandemic, sort of, ending pandemic days, that people dream about being at, versus middle of the big city somewhere.
Anyone else? I'll tell you one other thing that's really cool about living here, Andy, that I discovered. They have parades here like crazy. Like when I was a kid in upstate New York, every town had a parade, for Christmas or Thanksgiving, whatever. Well, they still do that here, and it's amazing. It's like going back in time. The little kids yelling at the fire trucks and the whole 9 yards. So that's a hidden benefit of living in a place like this.
I love that example, because that just builds community and a sense of common purpose, and things that we all probably wish there was a little bit more of in the country today.
Exactly. Yeah,
so, no, but again, the importance of, it may seem like such a distraction. My goodness, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got 200 things to do today, and my business is barely, trying to survive and grow.
Yeah.
I want to take a couple of hours to figure out my mission and beliefs and convictions. Well, you know what? It actually might be a great investment in time, because the more clearly you can communicate that and convey that through everything else you do, the more you reinforce the power of the brand that you represent. Another metric around a powerful brand is extendability. And on this example, I can speak from personal experience. I led the charge on SC Johnson buying this brand. And it was for a mouth-watering, melt the wax in your ears kind of price that I can't share, but boy, was it was amazing, the value that was created. And part of the value of this sunscreen brand, it's a very premium brand. The bottle on the left is cost $16. And that compares to, barely $3 for Equate, Walmart's store brand, or Coppertone is not much more than $3 a bottle. So the premium here is tremendous. It's a well-made formula, very premium formula ingredients. It feels great on the skin. It's distributed at some very, very, they use some very lighthouse distribution places. Peninsula Hotel, places that probably most of us have never stayed at, and at their gift shop area in Palm Beach, or Key West, Florida, places like that. And they did a lot of very clever advertising that emphasized the beach life, that really helped promote the idea of being a beach bum or a sun bum. And it created this really vibrant brand that, of course, started in sunscreen, but they had extendability. And part of what made this brand so valuable to purchase for SC Johnson back in July of 2019 was its extendability, because it not only addressed the US sun care or sunscreen market, about a $6 billion market, they were able to extend to lip care, which is another $1.5 billion roughly market, because after all, the sun's beating down on your lips too. So why not have a sunscreen capable lip balm? And how about babies? Babies are out in the sun. Got to protect them babies. That's an $11 billion market. And so being able to have Baby Bum as a line extension for addressing the very lucrative and very large baby care market. And then how about going to an even larger category, hair care and shampoos, almost a $50 billion category, because after all, if you're out in the beach all the time, that beach hair, who knows more about beach hair than Sunbum? So they had this wonderful way of starting in one core category with a very clear message, beautiful brand development, and expanding it out into adjacent categories that made sense. And the value of this, especially in terms of being acquired, is even if their penetration and sales in those adjacencies are not yet huge, they present a potential acquirer the opportunity to help continue to grow the value of the brand by pushing further and harder into the shampoo market and the baby market. And it creates more degrees of freedom for being able to grow the brand. And so again, whether you're selling sunscreen, whether you're selling pecans, whether you're selling house cleaners, to the extent that the brand that you create allows you to go into new areas, whether you directly fully exploit them or whether you create the potential to go there and offer that as an opportunity for someone that might someday acquire you to take that step, it creates value that you can be rewarded for. Now, the brand has to be right to be extendable. And there are some classic examples in history where brands didn't extend so well. My favorite example of a misstep there is Colgate beef lasagna frozen food.
Oh, Jesus.
It was a real product that was introduced. I honestly don't know what they were thinking, but it was launched. And not only did it fail, but Colgate toothpaste sales dropped 25% for 6 months after the launch.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if consumers just became confused by the brand and just abandoned it, or they were worried that there was tomato paste inside the toothpaste now, or what the deal was. But it was not a good thing, and they clearly just weren't thinking about, hey, how applicable is my brand, either the what or the how or the why. How relevant is that to the frozen food market? The sauces on the right are mock-ups. These weren't actual product introductions, but they were sort of a playful example of, hey, what if sodas went into the sauce business? And some of those may seem maybe attractive to you, maybe not so attractive. I don't know if you'd go for Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce in Eastern North Carolina, or whether that might be illegal in your jurisdiction.
I think it's illegal.
I would hope it would be.
29 counties in Eastern North Carolina, it's illegal. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And yet people try this all the time. I mean, how often in the ice cream world today do you find Snickers ice cream, Twix ice cream, different kinds of candy bars with the idea that, hey, chocolate and candy and ice cream, they kind of actually go together. So that one actually has worked. This one probably wouldn't. And so you have to really think about whether your brand can extend. It's not going to be an automatic, and not every brand can do things like what I shared with you that Sunbum does.
Now, I've seen Jack Daniel's barbecue sauce and Jack Daniel's flavored meat actually in the frozen food. So that's somebody who tried it. You wouldn't think that would work, but I think it has.
And there are great examples of a bourbon flavored. In fact, I just had a bourbon salmon at a restaurant last week, and that was a very reasonable one. You've heard about recipes with pork and things like that, so that could work. That could
Yeah.
work. No, but it's definitely one where you have to think it through. Maybe whether it's formal consumer testing or just informal sort of disaster checks. You may have heard the phrase, will the dog eat the dog food?
Yeah.
That comes from a famous example where a company actually built a factory. In fact, Koch Industries did this. It was a story around Georgia Pacific when I was there, where they came up with a cool recipe or a cool concoction for pizza dough, and they actually built a plant to make it. But none of the executives that pushed that business idea ever actually had a pizza made with that dough. And it turned out it was terrible. So it was a complete disaster, and they wrote it off, and they've used it ever since to help remind employees, hey, when you're doing innovation stuff, like, try it yourself. Will the dog eat the dog food type of thing? I think there's actually a historical example of a dog food that failed that must have led rise to that, but I haven't found it yet. If you do, love to hear it. So new brands also can reflect emerging trends and address new consumer needs and preferences. We talked already about a couple of them with plastic and the cleaners. The upper left has the Impossible Burger, which, if we had this conversation 3 years ago, you'd be saying, "Huh? What are you talking about?" But this has been a rapidly emerging area that consumers are interested, presumably for health reasons, or to appeal for people that would like to be vegetarians, but still don't want to give up their burgers. There might be a lot of reasons for it. I'm not one of those target consumers, but perhaps you are, or people that are, and these things are taking off. And there are a number of startups that are working on biofermentation, various plant protein to be represented as animal protein products that are just growing like crazy in terms of valuation and market penetration. And you can buy these things at Burger King. So it's a great example of something that has very rapidly emerged, but fueled by emerging trends. And those trends around health, around the concern around sustainability of meat production. There are a number of things that are fueling that. On the upper right is a cool example. The lip balm market has looked the same in terms of the shape of the typical cylindrical lip balm offering, whether it's chapstick or Burt's Bees or someone else. And EOS came up with a very fashion-friendly way of doing it with this egg. And it rapidly rose in popularity back in 2014. Out of nowhere, these things were appearing in Costco and multi-packs and in distribution all over the place. And they did it partly fueled by social media. They got some very influential social media types, actresses, things like that, to talk about it and to promote it in their blogs or just be seen using it. And before long, legions of fans were looking for these things. Then one of the influencers had an issue, I think an allergic reaction to it in 2015, and actually sued the company. And it died almost as quickly as it rose. It was this incredible bottle rocket of rapid growth for a year, and then it's still around, but just a shadow of what it was in its heyday when it was rocketing up in 2014. Down at the lower right, The Honest Company just went public a month ago. You might have seen its stock tank from its opening price and kind of leveling out. My good friend Nick Vlahos, former sales leader at the Clorox Company, is their CEO, and they're trying to help parlay this brand that had been started by Jessica Alba, I think about 14 years ago, to help create sort of safer products for babies, and is trying to take it now mainstream as a publicly traded company, trying to fight it out on the shelves of Walmart and Target into more and more categories. And they have done the classic extension of their brand into new areas. And on the lower left is a brand that Unilever actually bought back in 2016, Dollar Shave Club. They started through a viral video, and they were reflecting the trend around, Gillette blades are great, but I'm getting to the point where I have to get a second mortgage to be able to buy the darn things. And, has it gone too far? There was even the Saturday Night Live skit around 5 blades, not 5 blades, but like 20 blades on a Gillette razor as the next step when the 5-bladed Fusion came out. And Dollar Shave Club decided we're going to be the anti-Gillette. They had their viral video, hilarious thing. If you haven't seen it, it's good for a laugh, and it just caught on like wildfire. The idea of, hey, you don't need to spend incredible money to be able to get a good shave. So trends can often be great sources of new ideas for products or businesses, or they can help be things you can harness to pull your brand or your product or your offering or your service along, and to be able to make it bigger. Again, I'm sorry, Karen, to keep bringing up pecans, but if you come up with a cool way of packaging pecans without plastic, if you wanted to harness the ocean plastic trend, you could do that. It may or may not fit your brand, but these are things that you can discreetly look at when you look at what's capturing consumers' imagination today, or what are people getting really passionate about, and is there a way that your brand can become authentically connected to that, and you can kind of build your brand and your offering around it, to help just get a little tailwind for your business to grow. And then finally, I just wanted to comment on the role of new brands in the consumer packaged goods industry. They can, of course, continue to grow independently. You can build your company, and you can grow it, and you can run it and make it a multi-generational thing. There are great companies out there. In fact, S.C. Johnson is an example of that. They were started in 1886. They're currently on 5th generation ownership. Fitz Johnson, the CEO, 5th generation family member, runs the company, shows up at the office every day, and he ain't doing it to sell it out. His goal is to perpetuate that company, keep it strong for the 6th generation, for the 7th generation, to allow his family to continue to enjoy the ability to influence the marketplace, to have great careers for family members, and to continue to create wealth for the family legacy. But you may want to be bought out. And there are so many good examples of where strategic firms, including Unilever, the largest consumer packaged goods firm, I think they're almost $100 billion in sales, 90 years old, massive company. And yet you would think if any company has enough money to start new brands by themselves, it's them. But they have historically been very active acquirers, because they recognize that often it's the entrepreneurs with the energy and the passion, like each of you, are the ones that often have the best ideas or can best capture consumers' imaginations or harness a new trend that may be emerging. And whether it's kind of a very socially conscious food brand like Ben & Jerry's that they purchased in 2000. And by the way, they've kept them very hands-off in terms of being run by the corporation. They let them keep doing their thing. And frankly, a lot of the things Ben & Jerry's is doing as a company from a social activism standpoint are being adopted by the parent company. So it's not just we absorb it and we're like the Borg and it becomes assimilated and part of us. In many cases, the acquisitions significantly changed the parent company. They got into a new line of personal care products in 2010 with the Alberto Culver acquisition. They acquired Dollar Shave Club, as we mentioned in the last slide, in 2016. 7th generation, they were seeing this natural cleaner thing going on, and they decided, you know what, we could do our own brand, but how much better to be able to learn about this market space and about building sustainable products from a brand that had been doing it in a very authentic way for several decades. The Korean beauty trend had been kicking in and growing dramatically in the personal care space in 2017. They purchased a leading K-beauty brand based in South Korea. Again, partly for the sales, but partly to learn what else there could be adopted and taken into other brands across Unilever, like the Dove brand for skincare. And I'm convinced startups that you're building today and great brands that you're bringing to the world today are potential candidates for future acquisitions as well. And I'm really convinced that this will continue to be a vibrant part of the consumer goods marketplace. That the large companies that have the resources will often be doing clever and creative things, but often it's the most clever and the most creative things are being done by startups and entrepreneurs that have the passion, that have a cool idea, that have the courage to do it, and frankly, kind of like the vibe of that Dude Wipes CEO, go for broke mentality of, what, I believe in this and I'm going to make it happen. And I'm not going to sit there and calculate in some corporate political decision-making process whether to do it. I'm going to go do it. And I'm going to demonstrate that it's going to win and it's going to succeed and that I can create value for society with a new brand that will help promise a new benefit to consumers that they're going to value and they're going to reward me for by helping my company grow.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Andy, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I have got to go to another meeting. So what I'd like to do is on the Slack channel, if you all have questions for Andy, we can post them there. And I apologize for that. It's actually, I have a meeting with the chancellor of ECU, so I can't. Oh, no. I didn't even make the appointment. Someone else made it for me. So unfortunately, he's a new guy. They just hired him. So I've got to be nice and all that kind of stuff. So I apologize, but we will get the questions on Slack and thank you so much, Andy. Every time I listen to you, I'm ready to start 3 companies. It's just unbelievable.
All right.
It's so, the fact that guy did it with Dude Wipes is like a dream come true for me, like no matter how crazy it might sound, it's doable. Right, Quandale? We can do this, buddy. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. I'm going to have to run and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.